All right, folks, thank you so much for taking the time. It is my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to welcome you all out to our Community Conversations Town Hall. And on behalf of our esteemed panelists whom we have up here, on behalf of everyone from our offices who have come out here tonight to share a little bit more with you all about what we're doing to help keep the community safe, we appreciate you all taking the time. My name is Aaron Huber, and I'm with the Office of the Commonwealth's Attorney, whom I will be introducing along with the rest of our panelists very briefly, and then they will have the opportunity to give some remarks themselves. So I just want to say welcome, of course, to our Commonwealth's Attorney, Gerina D. Weathers. Thank you, of course, for being out here tonight. Our new official, no longer interim chief, Paul Humphrey. Thank you so much. Appreciate you not only being here, but for your team helping promote this event so that we can have all these fine folks here tonight. Of course, Councilman Dan Seum Jr. Thank you so much. District 13. And to your legislative assistant as well as you, Lisa Ammon. Thank you so much for not only helping to promote this, but for the use of this space. We're very grateful to be here at the Playtorium here in Fairdale. So, before we get to the introductory remarks, I'd like to share just a little bit about what we're going to be seeing and hearing tonight. That way you all can have an understanding of what we're going to be doing over the course of the next hour. Once I finish up with the explanation, our panelists will have the chance, of course, to give their introductory remarks. Throughout the course of the evening, as we've been preparing for this point, I have asked everyone to please write down questions that they may have, specific questions for our panelists, and I'm very thankful for the folks who have had the opportunity to do so. It is not too late. If you do still have a question as our panelists are speaking, please come find me. I will be up here and available. I'll be happy to have your question, and I will work to make sure that every single question is read tonight verbatim. This is going to be an open conversation for all of us. But having them written down helps keep things a little bit more organized and helps make sure that we can be as respectful of people's time as possible. If we do have some additional time at the end, we will possibly open it up to microphone-based questions directly from the audience. But again, we're trying to keep this at a tight hour. So once we reach about that point, our panelists will give their closing remarks. And then, if they do have some additional time after the panel, and they are in a position to take some specific one-on-one questions, then we'll work to facilitate that. So without further ado, please give a big hello to your Commonwealth's Attorney, Gerina D. Weathers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate that you're here. Just a little bit of background. I think I've been here a little bit over a year and some change. I started out in prosecution years ago, and then ended up in Frankfurt for a long period of time. Had some time in D.C. and actually worked with one of our congressmen years ago, Congressman Manslick, and actually wasn't raised right here, but I was raised right over here in the South End at PRP. So Heavenly Heights subdivision, yeah. So I went to Conway Middle and then went to PRP High School and went to college and actually was a music major at the time. So I was out of town at school, then I came back. I lost my mother and father at a very early age and came back to actually help raise my brother and sister. So that's a little bit about me. I will share with you that I've been a servant all my life. Wasn't born here, but I got to meet some of our veterans. The military brought me here. Came from New York, and Fort Knox brought us here. Almost every man in my family is actually military, so I learned a lot. I learned about service. I learned about how important it is that life isn't just about you. But I also have learned that I'm not going to make everybody happy. It's unfortunate, but that's just part of this process of what we do in this world. I want to thank you, Metro Councilman, for allowing us to be here today and having this beautiful space. And I definitely want to thank the new chief for being here and everyone else that took your time to come. So I want to share just a couple of things about what happens at the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. There are two prosecutors' offices. One is the county. Sometimes you don't see that on TV, but it's the county attorney's office. Then you have a Commonwealth Attorney's Office. The county's attorney's office, that's where everything starts. That's what you do see on TV. All the misdemeanors, felonies, all those cases start in the county attorney's office. Once it starts there, those felonies, if they stay felonies, those are the bigger items, the bigger charges, those where you would have more time in jail, they're more serious crimes. After our police department and our law enforcement actually investigate those cases and take care of us the way they do, they become cases and then they come to us. And that's when you hear about the grand jury. The grand jury is when we indict. And I'm only sharing this because someone had asked me before how it all works. The indictment means that we put it in front of you. We put it in front of a group of people called the grand jurors. It's not us. And then they determine whether or not it's going to be a case in our courtrooms. And then from there, we have about 100 people in our office. The Commonwealth's attorneys are also considered like district attorneys. We're called Commonwealth's attorneys because we're here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. There are about 8 of us in the United States as far as Commonwealths. The rest of us are district attorneys. Of 100 people in our office, there are 44 prosecutors. Of those 44 prosecutors, right now we have about 4,900 cases. So give or take, you're talking about a little bit over 100 cases, and that's okay. That's what we're there for. But that's how that works. And then somehow we're blessed enough to have our victim advocates, our paralegals, and the other folk that work in our office. So our responsibility is to do the best that we possibly can. And again, I just wish that we could always do everything that everybody wants us to do, but we try to do the best that we can do. And we have one of our prosecutors here today. His name is Scott Dravenstead. I want to thank him for being here. We are lucky enough to have him. He's been with us for a very long time, but he started in defense work. And so that the other person, Alex, who's second in command, Alex Daythorn. So you got a group of people that are from all over. They have been working very, very hard. They can be anywhere they want to be. Some of them have worked outside the country. Some of them have taught. We've got another one that left the office and started a human trafficking campaign outside the U.S. And I will just say I'm blessed to have the good people that we have in our office. So as we move forward after the year that I got here, the biggest part is to start listening to you. That's why we have these town halls. We are the reason why we are here. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can. We know that there's a lot going on out there. We know that. And what we're trying to do is be as strategic as we possibly can to try to make sure that you all stay safe. And there's 782,000 of us in Jefferson County. And what we try to do is that we put together programs and services to make sure that we are out in the community, that we do some really heavy-duty collaboration. I know you hear that word all the time. I will share with you this. It's about being intentional. It's about putting programs together the way we have. We've got a gun program where we work with, it's not our program, it started with the LMPD, and we work with them to actually seek out some of those folk that are out there not doing the things they need to be doing out in the community and trying to get them off the streets. We also take care of our seniors. We've got a couple of cases with our seniors, and we work with our federal partners with those. We've got a lot of programs where we just want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. So there's 3 general trial units that are in our office. That means that those are just regular cases that we will get from the grand jury. Then we have a special victims unit. You've probably heard about those types of cases, but those are our child abuse cases, our senior abuse cases, our domestic violence cases. And that's my background. That's where I came from when I prosecuted cases. And then we have a violent crime unit who works very, very closely with law enforcement, especially with LMPD, and then on the regional and the state level as much as we possibly can. We also have a new partnership with the Attorney General. It's the first of its kind. Because what we're trying to do is that we know that we can't do it by ourselves. We have to have a community that comes together like we do today. And we've got to do something different. That's what my mama would say. I lost her, she was about 43, 44 years old when she died. But she lived a good life. She taught me a lot. And she shared with me that it's not worth living if we ain't out here trying to help somebody else. So we're going to continue to do what we do. I will share with you that, I don't know, we're pretty darn good at what we do as far as prosecution. But we're working each and every day to make sure that we can do what we can. So thank you all so very much. Now what we'll do is we'll turn it over to our councilman, and then we'll hear from our chief, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you all for coming out. First and foremost, I want to say I believe that the city had a collective sigh of relief when our new chief of police was announced. And Chief, we congratulate you. We know that you've got us at best, and you're gonna treat us right. You're gonna keep us safe. We're blessed also with flanked by 3rd and 7th District Precinct, our 3rd Precinct Major here, Beckman, and we thank you for being here and keeping us safe. When I ran for office, the first item on my platform was safety. And the first thing I did when I took office was we designated September for Law Enforcement Appreciation Month, and we're in the middle of that month, and we appreciate our officers, and we want them to know that every day of the year, but especially in September, we want them to have special recognition, and we thank you guys, and thank you again, Paul, for stepping up and trying to going to keep us safe. Safety's #1 issue. We know that. I think we're pretty well blessed here in Fairdale and Precinct 13, District 13. We want to keep it that way. We want to make it safer. We want to do block watches. We want to hold people accountable. We want to hold judges accountable, because it doesn't matter what these DAs do. They're going to do everything they can, but we've got to hold these judges accountable too, because they're letting some folks right back out in the streets. And I know it frustrates the officers, the prosecutors. It's a tough thing, but we're going to be more mindful of it. We're going to get the right people in office, and we do have conversations going on with the judges. So that's, it's going to have to work all the way around. But I thank everybody for being here. There's not much I have to say, but we thank you again. We do congratulate Paul Humphrey for being chief. We know he's going to keep us safe, and I'm anxious to hear what some of the plans are. I've got some issues we're going to be bringing up. Going to be running some ordinances. I'll be bringing it to you and seeing how you feel about it before I do. But thanks again for showing up. If you see something, say something. And Paul, did you want to say something? Thank you.
All right, good evening. Thank you all for being here. These types of events and this type of interaction is so critical to what we do. And I'll say that I'm really appreciative of Major Donnie Bachman. He and I go way back. We were B partners, and we rode down in Portland and Russell for years. And I know what type of cop he is, and I know how much he cares about the community, and that's part of the reason why we advocated for him to get promoted to Major. And he's doing a great job out here, and I'm sure plenty of you all have had interactions with him. He's absolutely outstanding. But to the councilman's point, one of the things that we are going to be talking about is having an actual crime plan, having a strategic plan for LMPD. And that's one of the things that we're actually going to introduce publicly as part of that tomorrow at the promotion ceremony, where we'll be recognizing about 20 employees for their promotions tomorrow. And here's the thing about plans, right, is that everybody kind of hates plans for real. You just spend all this time on them administratively, and they sit on a shelf and nobody pays attention to them. But the important thing about a plan is that everyone understands their role and everyone understands what the impact of what they're being asked to do is. I remember being a beat officer, riding late watch, being asked to do certain things, and having no clue how I fit into the big picture of keeping people safe. And what you get out of that is you get a lackadaisical effort, and you get a C+ effort, which is not what the community deserves. And officers don't deserve that either. They should know why we are asking them to do certain things and how they fit in. The other problem with the way I think we've traditionally addressed crime is we've taken this task force approach to crime, and there is a time and a place for a task force or a new unit. But the problem is that became that unit's problem. It didn't become the community's problem to solve. It didn't become the entire department's problem to solve. And if we're actually going to focus on community safety, it has to be something that goes across the entire department, and it has to be done collaboratively with the community. So these types of interactions, the interactions that we're going to build into our community safety plans between the police department, the mayor's office, and the rest of metro government, with the council and everything else, is going to be very, very important. And that's ultimately how we're going to make sure that we do our jobs to keep you safe. We want to be responsive to your needs, and we want to make sure you understand why we are doing the things that we're doing. So thank you all for being here and ready for all the questions, right?
So folks, I've had a chance to take a look at the questions that you all have shared, and I really appreciate the quality of the questions and the nature of the questions, and wanted to share a little bit about kind of what we're going to be seeing. The first round of questions have to relate to action. That is, how can this be done? How can that be done? What about this? The second relates to policy. What is in place in terms of this, that, or the other? What is the reasoning? What is the rationale for what may be interpreted as or seen as or may be accurately viewed as a correct policy? And then the last has to do with practices. Why are things being done the way they're being done? We'd like to know a little bit more and dive into those practices if we think the policy may say one thing or another. Now, that being said, again, this is an open forum, and I'm going to read all these questions verbatim. Even if it may appear, or even if it is specifically addressed to one of our panelists, these questions are open and available for anyone who wants to chime in with their unique perspective to answer. So the first question that we have, again relating to action, is a general one that any one of our panelists would be qualified. Of course, they're all qualified to answer any of these questions, but there's a generality to this question, which is, how can the carjacking be stopped? So who would like to speak first on how can the carjacking be stopped? Chief, it's going to be this one that's it's okay.
All right, so carjacking, like any other violent crime, it has to be dealt with in multiple approaches. First of all, you have to have an enforcement arm of it, right? Criminals need to fear the police, right? They need to think that if I do something wrong, I am going to be arrested, and those consequences are going to be immediate. And preferably, that displaces a delays crime. What we know is that when there is the combination of the criminal and the opportunity, that if you take that opportunity away, then there is a likelihood that that crime never gets committed, right? And so having a criminal population that thinks that, just around the corner there's an officer who might stop me or might lock me up is very important. The other aspect of that comes to her end, right, is the prosecution portion. So we have to do our job. I'm not going to speak about her job. We have to do our job, because it's very easy for us to complain about cases that get dismissed or cases where we think criminals should get more time than they should get, but we don't have control of that. What we have control of is the quality of cases that we put on people. So it's on us to make sure that we're cooperative with the prosecutors so that they teach us where the holes in our cases are, so that we have more quality prosecutions. That increases the likelihood that people are going to serve the amount of time that they should. And then obviously there are social aspects of it too, that a lot of this is being done by juveniles. The juvenile level of crime, if a kid has gotten to the point that we have to deal with them, that is a societal problem. The police can't raise your kid for you. And if we have to raise your kid for you, that is going to be a problem for that kid for the rest of their life. We know that once a kid is incarcerated, that the likelihood of them staying in the system in some fashion is very high. So we need systems as a community to make sure that we never get to that point where the police have to deal with those kids.
And then our responsibility is to make sure that we connect the dots. Many times when folks would share from us, and I get it, when, especially if you have been a victim of one of these crimes, is why is it taking so long? What's happening with the case? One of the biggest things is that we have to make sure that we have the right person in front of us. A lot of these carjackings that we're finding, we don't have the person who did it. We have the descriptions, we've got people who tell us what they are, but the ones that we do have, it goes through our robbery, what we consider a violent crime unit with our robbery unit. And what we try to do is to make sure that we try to start getting these cases and putting them through as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly can. And then from there, we've got from a 1-year time that they can stay in jail, all the way up to 15 or 20, depending on what it is. And that's what we do. Now, the ones that are committed by the youth, it has become a little bit easier, I'll say that. In the county attorney's office, they have the juvenile arm of prosecution. They're the ones that actually, the prosecutors bring in these youth, and then they deal with the judges and the defense, you know, their attorneys, and they work through these processes. There are a couple of them based on age that will not be able to come to us, but there has been some changes in the law. So the more violent they are, we can get them. But it's still a process. It's a process of getting them in. And then if they found guilty, it may be until they're 18 before they're even sentenced. So our responsibility is try to keep them in. If we have them, we try to keep them in custody. But those are some things that we're still working on, I'll be honest with you. We're doing everything that we can. When we get the cases, we try to prosecute the cases if we have them.
One of the things that I'm going to be bringing up in Metro, and we've done a little research on this, we had a Family Dollar store that was ransacked by 75 juveniles, and they destroyed it. And every one of their faces were blurred, and their names were blurred, and these juveniles know that we're not going to disclose them, even if they're doing a violent crime. And so I've looked into the law. It's not a law that they have to obscure their names. So I'm working with some of the media, and those are things I'm looking at. If they're committing a violent crime, we need to know who they are. Now, I know it's tough to put a teenager in jail and put a number on them, but it might be something that saves their life and gives them an opportunity to reset their lives in jail. Sometimes being taken away from that street element will save their lives. But we keep coddling these juveniles. I mean, if they're in the middle of a violent crime, we need to know who they are. Their mom and dad might think that they're at Billy Bob's spending the night, and they're out committing violent crimes. They need to know who they are. So that's one thing I'm going to be working on. Another thing I'm going to be working on, not going to be real popular, we need more flock cameras that the officers are using so we can run these license plate down, and other automated enforcement. We want to look into that. Another thing we want to look into is COVID's over. And the police officer will tell you, if there's a young kid wearing a mask, he's up to no good. And we need to try to end that. We had an ordinance before COVID, no mask. We need to get back to that, so I'll be looking into that. So those are proactive things we need to do to get in front of this. And of course, we need programs and all that, but I'll tell you, there's a percentage of juveniles and adults alone that are bent on hurting us. And that's who I want to deal with. If we can help those, they can be helped, fine. But there's some people that are just downright honoring, and they need reset. We need to take them off the streets.
Next question, again, has to do with action or of a general term, which is, what do we need to do to keep ourselves safe when we are shopping or attending events? So who would like to take that first? Safe.
I know when we used to talk with our seniors, especially with our seniors, and just with families alone, it's one of those things, unfortunately, it's probably the first thing is to make sure that you are aware of your surroundings. Make sure that you have somebody with you. If you're traveling by yourself, make sure that you let somebody else know where you are. I know we've run into that too. That just make sure you let your daughter know, your son know, let somebody know what's going on. The other part is that when you park, make sure that you look around and just look where are the lights. If you're going to be coming out at night, you want to make sure that you're parking a little bit closer to wherever you're going. With the malls, these days you can actually call the mall, believe it or not, and somebody will come out and they'll escort you in. But these events, we just have to make sure that we are traveling in packs. And then Councilman just said it a few minutes ago, when you see something, say something. A lot of times that's where we find a lot of our cases to figure out what we need to do. And then unfortunately, we've gotta be a little bit more vigilant of what we do and how we do, lock our cars. I would not advise, I don't want to get into what our LMPD officers do, but I wouldn't advise sitting in the car anymore. You know, I used to sit in the car and turn on the radio and listen, and I could be right there in front of my house. Those are some things that we no longer should be doing. And then again, just look around and see what's going on.
So I'll second everything that she said. I'll add that transitional spaces, those places where you're going in and out of, getting in and out of your car, gas stations, going in and out of stores, those are places where you definitely should be aware of your surroundings, know who's around you, know those types of things. But this is a good community safety question, because there's those issues that are larger issues, right? That where we need to build trust and relationships with the community to solve problems. But these are some of those simple things to help solve problems when you're talking about that crime triangle. Don't create the opportunity for people who are looking to prey on other people. It's those simple things. Keep your car doors locked. Don't leave your keys in your car. The number of cars that we have that get stolen that have their keys still in their cars is, I don't understand it at this point. I don't understand how anyone would leave their keys in their car, especially with remote starts at this point. And you might want to check your insurance, because a lot of insurance companies won't cover that if your keys are in your car. So be aware of that. But it's about being aware of your surroundings and making sure you know what's going on. Park in well-lit areas and don't hang out in places you shouldn't be.
I would say all the above, but also don't live in fear. Don't live captive to these people. You know, do your due diligence, but go about your business. We do have good officers. We've got cameras, and don't live in fear. Don't let them hold you hostage. And if you see something, say something.
Thanks, folks. Our next question before we get into policy has to do with the hiring of police, and it says, what incentives are being offered to hire more police? Anybody want to take that first?
So this is a constant problem, and let's be all the way real with the level of the problem that we're facing. We're 250-ish officers short. If we started hiring at full capacity tomorrow, we would still be 3 to 4 years from being back up to fully staffed with normal attrition levels. That being said, I am excited about the contract that we've gotten recently between Metro Council and the Mayor's office. This is now a job where I feel like officers are being compensated appropriately for the level of work that they're doing. This job is not the same job that it was when I started. It's not the same job that it was. The expectations are different. The pressures are different in this job, and the compensation should be adjusted as such. And I think they've done a good job of that. That being said, the number one thing that's going to recruit and retain police officers is leadership, and how the officers that are here feel like they are being taken care of to be able to do their job really well. We have to have a different understanding of what accountability means. Accountability does not simply mean discipline. Accountability, when it's done right, prevents discipline. And it's about helping people be really good at their jobs so that we never get to the point where we have to have a disciplinary issue, where people feel like they're cared about, where people feel like they're taken care of. And they will go out and say, I'm really proud of this patch, I'm really proud of this badge, and I like the people that I work with. You should come join me. And so the focus on taking care of the officers is so that they can focus on taking care of you. And that will get more people through the door.
I hope that an incentive is knowing that Metro Council has your back if you want to be a police officer in Louisville, Kentucky, and we have your back. We're going to vote on your raises. We're going to, if you need them, We are going to equip you with what you need. We're going to make sure you have what you need to keep us protected. And I hope that that's an incentive to our future police officers to know that this city has your back and we care for you and we appreciate you. We're going to go to bat for you. We trust the leadership, and again, we just have your back.
Moving into questions about policy. Nashville, Seattle, and Oakland have created public processes for deciding how police departments purchase and use surveillance equipment. Would LMPD consider collaborating to adopt a similar policy in Louisville? Chief, I know this is for you, but again, anyone of our panelists can answer on it.
So not specific to surveillance equipment or any specific piece of technology. We actually have a function on our website for policy feedback. So we post all of our policy on our website, and we have a policy feedback function where you can give a general comment about policy, or you can give very specific recommendations about policy. You can choose to be anonymous, or you can choose to leave contact information so that we can follow up with that. And so we review all of those and track all of those recommendations that are made by the public on our policy, because we understand that community expectations about how we perform and the things we do are very important to our job. So definitely open to that level of feedback.
Is it has to do with policy about surveillance, collaborating with other cities in order to make sure that policies are in place deciding how to purchase and use the surveillance?
I think that you can talk about
Would this have to do with flock cameras, Chief?
I would assume that's
What we're hoping to do is fund more flock cameras, their license plate readers. As far as surveillance, there's a no chase policy, so we've introduced drones to go after some of these folks. Automated enforcement is another thing I'm looking into. We have people here on Mount Holly who are doing 94 mile an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. On my street on Jefferson Hill, they're doing 87 mile an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. And the answer is we're going to have more police officers to patrol it. We do not have the police officers to patrol that in all these areas. So I'm going after automated enforcement. It's not going to be popular with people in Frankfurt, but it's something that's necessary and it's something that's going to help our officers. I don't know if that's part of the surveillance you're talking about, but another thing I'm wondering about is when it comes to cyber security and surveillance, if 75 kids was going to go tear up Family Dollar, they had to organize this, and they do this on social media. What are we doing about that? Can we beef that surveillance up?
And I think the question, if you did want to elaborate, if not, that's fine. I think the question did involve so this equipment is purchased, when the surveillance equipment is purchased, if these other cities, Nashville, Seattle, and Oakland, have created public processes for saying, okay, this police department can purchase this police department can use it this way, is there any idea about collaborating with these other cities or implementing a similar process for saying, okay, the police department, we can purchase this, we can purchase that, we can use it this way, we can use it that way?
Well, I believe we're going to look at best practices, and I think that's up to Chief Humphrey. He's going to use all the best practices, and we trust him to implement them.
Our next question is similar but a little bit distinct. The previous one, of course, talked about the choice to purchase and use and any governing processes behind those choices. But this one relates more specifically to what happens with license plate readers. I think specifically those flock cameras that have come up a few times. And the question is, when a license plate reader collects data that isn't matched to a database, how is that data used and how long is it stored? So, when information is collected, what are the specific policies in place that govern how that data is used? That's what we're looking for. I think, Chief, again, this is for you.
Yeah, so that data is on a loop that auto deletes, and I'm not sure the exact retention on cars that we don't actually have a criminal nexus to. But what that is effectively when there's a stolen car, for instance, That goes into NCIC, the National Crime Index Database. I can't even remember what it stands for, jeez. Anyway, it goes into a national computer database. So any officer anywhere in the country can run it on their MDT, or they can run it through the radio, and it will come back and alert the officer that it's stolen. Effectively, what a flock camera does is it does that automatically for us. So when a stolen car goes through an intersection where there's a flock camera, a hit comes back on it and alerts officers. That information is only stored as long as there's an investigative nexus to it. We cannot store information on people who are not under active investigation. So. I think it's.
I believe, Chief, that there's a 30-day limit on holding that information, and that was brought forth by Frankfurt.
I didn't want to say the wrong number. I think it's a 30-day loop. I didn't want to misquote.
We've been talking a lot about questions about LMPD. This one actually is specifically addressed to you, Chief, but again, available for anyone to comment on. It is in relation to a specific event, but I think that, not only in the fairness of making sure everyone's questions are answered, but also because it can be applicable to maybe other people's experiences, I do want to make sure that it gets shared. So the question is, we have a small neighborhood, and the consensus is that we don't have a police department that cares about our neighborhood. We even recently learned that calls for help are being ATL'd, that is, attempt to locate for everybody. When no attempt for service is made. I have sent emails to our division major that go unacknowledged. So my question is this: is this the standard? And is it acceptable for your officers to ignore the public? And when did it become okay to falsely close out roads?
Okay, so first of all, I'm sorry that you have the feeling that the police department does not care about you. That is not okay for you to feel that way. That being said, we also have to have an understanding of the resources that we have and how we allocate those resources. We are in the process of looking at how we allocate resources. We know that we have to prioritize violent crime. We have to prioritize those things where people are in danger or people are hurt. Car accidents, robberies, shootings, those things, they take a lot of time and they have to be the priority because there's an immediate danger. And that is our responsibility to make sure that we respond to those in a time-appropriate fashion. Those things that are not immediate emergencies, they get triaged. So what happens is when you call 911, you call MetroSafe, which does all of the dispatch for police, fire, and EMS for the county, with the exception of some of the small cities that go through the sheriff's office. They triage that dispatch based on the level of emergency that it is. And so they prioritize when and where they're going to dispatch certain things. Some things do get an ATL or an attempt to locate. A lot of times those are things like loud music, abandoned cars, things like that get ATL for an officer to be able to check on whenever they're in the area. We should not clear runs that we have not checked on. And unless it's something that we've dealt with over and over again, which that happens sometimes, we should not just clear out runs for no reason. There should be a legitimate reason for clearing out an issue. And it sounds like the person with the question has a very specific issue. So I will say your email will get answered in person at the end of this meeting by Major Donnie Bachman. So get with him at the end of the meeting and we'll make sure we get your questions answered.
And this is just relative. I know the chief earlier said that we're not really into a lot of task force, but what we have to do in our office, that we do have to prioritize and to try to figure out how we do that. And one of those is one of our, what we call, it's a fancy name, it's called PFP, possessive firearm prohibitors. But what we do is that we're going to pull these cases, of all those thousands of cases that we have, we began to start pulling the data, pull the cases that involve guns. And of those cases that involve guns or serious crimes, we take them to our prosecutors that have been here the longest, Scott being one of them. There's a lot of the prosecutors that have been around. And then we work specifically with the team inside of Chief's office, Chief's agencies to work on it. Since we started that in May of 2023, we have indicted one case at least every 5 to 7 days. So that's the way that we can at least pull them, prioritize. We know that the gun cases are serious. We may not be moving as quickly as everybody would like, but what we are doing is we're trying to be intentional about some of these cases. So I'll apologize up front that there are some other cases that we receive. It's just a matter of priority, trying to keep you all safe. And some of those, when we're talking about those issues, guns are a big one. Carjacking / robbery are big cases for us. And then I do have somebody else from our office. Special victims unit, their domestic violence cases, they're the most serious cases, and that's why we have those carved out just for a certain amount of prosecutors, paralegals, and victim advocates. So, and there will be times, and I'm sure it happens, that you all contact our office, and we may not respond the way you all would want us to respond. But I do want you all to let us know, hold us accountable.
The one thing that comes to my mind is expectations. The chief's told you that we're short a lot of officers, and I would just ask you to consider the expectations. What do we expect out of them, knowing what they have to go through? I don't think LMPD is there now to ignore us. They're here to serve us. And like they said, it is priorities. I had to learn that the tough way, because I had to call them on a trivial homeless thing, which I don't think police officers need to be dealing with. And they're making runs to shootings. And, some things that are trivial, that, we don't really look at it that way, but these guys are running after bullets or running from bullets, and we're worried about them, some trash in the street or something. So I would just say our expectations, and they're here to serve us. They're not here to hurt us. So think of it that way too.
Do we have any written questions that I've not had a chance to collect, any outstanding questions at this time? Okay, I will, since we do have some additional time, open it actually up to the floor. If anybody would like to speak their question, I think we have to take it right here.
In regards to the street racing, what is the process going on with that?
Can you repeat it?
Street racing.
So the question was, what are we doing in regards to street racing? So this is actually a good example for me to be able to clarify my statement on the task force. So what I was saying about task force earlier is that what we have a tendency to do is throw a task force at a problem that becomes a crime plan. Task force are good for dealing with specific issues. And so that's an intelligence-driven thing. When we have intel that there's going to be some street racing issues, it's actually an overtime detail that's run by our traffic unit. And so they get 5, 7, 10 officers together, and we are towing cars. I can't remember the exact number that we're up to, but it's over 20 cars in the last, since Labor Day, that we have seized. And so and this is not stopping. So don't think that just because the incident happened a week ago, those detectives are still following up with those cases and identifying who's involved, and they're going and taking these cars out of parking lots and driveways still to this day on some of these things that have happened weeks ago. So it's something that obviously the community cares about, and we do take seriously.
And there's a FAST team, fatal accident safety team, that's part of, that is LMPD, that's our officers. And then we have a team inside our office that deals specifically with those cases similar to that, DUI, homicides. And we actually went out yesterday and met with Chief's team, traffic team. There was like 20 of them. There was a lot
Not
of
quite.
them.
I wish we were back up.
Seems like it was 20,
Yeah.
it was a lot of them. But we got to meet with them, and the great part about it is that conversation was not a kumbaya conversation. They wanted to know exactly some very specific questions about what we do in our office, and vice versa. And then we were able to talk about it, talk through it, try to figure out what we needed to do, because these cases are hot. They're trying to figure out what to do, and we've got to make sure that we're set up and we're prepared to communicate and collaborate so we can try to take care of these cases.
Councilman?
And then again, I want to reiterate video evidence and cameras. The more cameras we can put out there, the more we let these folks know that you are being watched, that although there's not a police officer or a police car there, you're being watched, and we're going to come and get your car, we're going to confiscate it. We did it up at the Brickyard when they kept dumping all you've seen. It's cleaned up now because we had video evidence, and we come and we confiscated their trucks. And I love what the chief and the mayor's doing. It's no nonsense. They've put their foot down. They've let it be known what's going to happen. And if they bring us an ordinance to help strengthen what they're doing, I'll sponsor it and we'll get it done.
Are there any additional questions from the audience for the floor? Right here. Oh. There's a bunch. We have definitely two distinct questions here. The first one has to do with what is being done with the building at Hornback Park by the pool. With Councilman, this might relate to you. Yeah, the building at Hornback Park by the pool.
Is that the
Traffic station, I guess they're talking about.
oh the school?
Like school.
Well, that's going to be a preschool, Bezos Academy. It's going to be free. It's going to be for kids from our district. They're not going to be bussed in. It's going to be from our district, and I think it's going to be a great thing because it's going to prepare our kids for Fairdale Elementary and Coral Ridge. So it's just been it's a real positive thing they're doing there. It's not costing the city anything, and it's not going to cost the people to take their kids to that school. So it's a win-win for Fairdale.
Again, anyone in touch? That's again one I've offered. Next one is: can criminals still be forced to go into the military?
That's a huge question.
We've got some military folk in here, don't we? They can probably answer that. Can you think you can answer it? I don't think you can. I don't think you can force it anymore. That's
Back in the late 60s and early 70s when I was serving, if they had a crime, whatever period of time they were going to go to jail for, they totally forced them into service.
I wouldn't want them to have
So-
my back.
So I will say this, judges have a lot of discretion in different areas, and so whether or not they give that as an option to someone, I don't know. But I will say this, one of the things that I went to recently that was amazing was I went to the Veterans Drug Court. And this is a program that the court has for veterans who have drug and alcohol addictions and have found themselves wrapped up in the criminal justice system. And it's a really amazing program because it takes months and months and months to complete. And it shows the dedication of people who have served our country to getting themselves back right, to being a successful part of the community. And the neat thing about it was not only the veterans that were going through the process, but there were probably 4 or 5 times the number of veterans that have already been through it or have had other problems or just there to support those guys and women that were going through that program. Absolutely amazing program.
So, just as a segue, yes, rehabilitative programs work very well, and I'm curious as to your opinions to those citywide as opposed to veteran-specific. Not that they're less or more important, but you said that it works, and how would that not work the whole city to reduce crime for all users?
Yep. You want to take it first? Anybody? I was going to talk about GBI.
yeah, I'll let you talk about it.
Okay.
But this is the exciting part of being able to talk with you all, chat with you for a little bit. These are the things that you won't see on TV. I mean, there are courts. I'm so glad Chief talked about that. We've got veterans court. We also have mental health treatment. We have mental health court. Those are the things you're not going to see because of the privacy issues. But believe it or not, they do work. They do work, and Chief will talk about something else as well. And then there are other programs that we've delved into. I agree with Councilman. We need to put some in jail, then we need to figure out about what's going on with others, because we can't. I don't care how many prisons we've had, because historically we've done it. We cannot prison our way out of what's going on right now. So we've got to figure out a little bit of both. I say a little bit of both. We've got to deal with that, because there are folk that just need help. But then there are other ones that are just bad. I mean, they're like bad to the bone. And those are the ones that we're dealing with. And unfortunately, they may look a certain way, they may look young, but I'm telling you what, we sit down and talk with these kids. I mean, these are the shooters, the gang members. We've met with them, and I've shared with some of them, look, we want to help you, but if it means taking just you off the street to protect 10 others, that's what we have to do. But there are programs that are out there. That mental health treatment is a big one for us. Veterans Court's been around for a very long time. And drug court is another one. Drug court is a big one. And it's another program where we have our judges that are involved. There are cases that are definitely come to us, but then we have to work with defense attorneys, and they go through a treatment program, and if that program is successful, we're able to do something a little bit differently with their cases. Most of them nonviolent, though.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because rehabilitation, particularly from drug and alcohol addiction, is tough, right? And I think we've all had people in our families who have gone through that process, and the vast majority of people are not successful the first time. They go through time and time again of trying to get themselves clean. And to her point, there are some people that they just need to be in jail, right? Sometimes, the locking somebody up is that momentary, that's that realization that things need to change. And that's what we hope it is. The thing that was good about seeing the drug treatment court is that we don't get to see as officers the backside of the process. A lot of times we lock people up, we drop them off, we end up knowing what their sentence was, but we never see the outcome for that person. So it's nice to see that outcome for people who are becoming successful. We also know there's a portion that aren't, and that we're going to have to deal with again. That being said, we have a program called Group Violence Intervention. That it's targeted towards, obviously, group violence, creative name. And what it's designed to do is identify people that are in these groups that are perpetuating these crimes and make an offer to them. Look, we have job treatment, or we have job training, we have education, we have rehab, we have all kinds of systems set up, emotional therapy. All of these things, these resources are here, and we are going to provide them with you with them to get you out of the lifestyle that you're in. The other side of that is you're on our list. You can either take this way out, or we will come and find you, and we will make sure that we prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Because those are the people that we know are likely to be either the next shooter or the next victim. Right? And we are not just targeting that individual, we are targeting their entire group. So all of the people that they're committing crime with, we're coming after them as well. And the hope is that they take that offer of resources, or that the group that they're in realizes the pressure is on them so much that they're forced to change their lifestyle.
And there's even relocation that's available for these situations. So there's all kinds of services. Goodwill Industries is one of the biggest agencies that the government, metro government works with, we work with, but especially with GBI. They have dedicated just a series of, just a lot of people who will help these kids if they want to be helped, to get them up and going with training, what they call soft skills and interview skills and all of these things. So those things are there. And just like Chief said, we're going to do everything that we can to try to help. But again, I mean, we've got some bad to the bone ones, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you, some that we've just got to get off the streets.
One of the things we're doing at Metro is we are funding organizations that are helping people with drug addiction. And one thing that I know that our third division does is they collaborate with with addiction recovery specialists, and they try to help them off the front end before they even get into the court system. And that just shows the heart of our officers. They're not here to punish these people. They're here to help these people. But just like she said, some have to be taken off the streets. We have drug courts and all that. Once they do get into court, they try to divert them. There's so many programs that we're doing, we're realizing we have to work with faith-based organizations to help with these ones with addiction, and we're doing everything we can, but there are those who need to be reset and taken off the streets and taken away from it. And I know some people think it's cruel, that we have to think that way, but we have to think that way. And but we don't. It's not our job to go locking people up. They're our neighbors, and Chief in J-Town, he'll tell them, we've got a place for you to go. If you don't go there, you got to go to jail. But you're not going to stay in this situation any longer in J-Town. And that's the approach we need to take.
Keeping an eye on our time, we will make that our final question for the evening. I think it's a good one to end on as well. But if you do have any additional questions, again, if they have the availability as we come to our conclusion, and you want to try and ask a question of our panelists, and again, if they have time, then I encourage you to try and do so, but we will go ahead and go into our closing remarks. Would anybody like to begin?
We just want to thank you all for coming, and thank you again, Councilman and Chief. One of the biggest part is that we can't just sit around and talk, but sometimes we need to. We need to find out what's going on. You all need to know who we are. We need to know who you are. In order, my mom always said that you got to put a face on things. And know that we are here to help, and we are here to do everything to our best of our abilities to make sure you all stay safe.
And again, I'd just like to say thank you again. It's important that we have these type of interactions. I love this job and I like talking about it, so I'm very open to talking about what we do. And anytime we get that opportunity, I appreciate it. So thank you.
My honor is serving District 13, and I think, as you can see, our folks out here care about our community and they care about our safety, and this is how they show up every time we have a meeting. And this is in the middle of an oncoming storm, but I want to thank you all for showing up. I know you care about Fairdale and our district, and I want you to know, and I think you do know, that we're in good hands with our new chief, and once again, we want to congratulate you, Chief.
Looking forward to your formal swearing in, sir. Again, I really want to thank everyone for the time on behalf of our panelists, on behalf of our office, on behalf of everyone who cares about safety in our community, not just in Fairdale, but across our city. Thank you for being out here tonight. Thank you for being engaging. Please drive safely.
Who is that in the back?